Hi everyone, it's Sarah again. I'm going to be answering more questions from this Reddit thread, and I'll be posting this to my YouTube channel and then to my website, www.breakingintosoftware, later when I have a chance, and I'll be posting the link on here. The main reason I do this is it takes a lot of time to type responses out, especially because I like to go into detail, and it helps other people also who have the same questions get this information. So I answered some questions the other day, but I'll be going back through here to answer more of the questions I didn't get to yesterday. Okay, so Pika Rika asked, what types of experiences / projects did you have in your resume to get an interview? I'm only in my second year, but I've seen so many people around me get internships already, and I'm at a loss at where to start. That's a great question. Okay, so actually, my first year of school, so I'm actually wrapping up my last year of school. I'm in my 5th year. My first year of school, I was not a CS major. I was an international business major, and I got an internship at Boeing in their business unit. While I was there, I ended up being the PM of a software team. I got sort of moved around because I told them I thought I was actually more interested in engineering, but I wasn't really sure. My manager was kind enough to let me move to a technical team where I sort of got to watch software developers work and go to an incubator with our team where they were learning agile software development. At the time, I didn't really know anything about software, so it was very, very new to me. But it was a great way to just throw me in the deep end. I didn't write any software that summer at all. I just sort of got to watch and learn. And I'd say even at the end, I still really didn't know much about software. It just looked a lot more interesting to me than it previously had. To get an interview, so the truth is there's certain internships like Microsoft Explore, Google Step, I think Facebook University, Twitter has one as well, and I'm sure more companies are starting to add them. So I would just Google that, freshman and sophomore internships. Usually, especially if you're a freshman, they don't really expect you to have a lot of projects, but I did have some listed on my resume. I don't think I have copies to that resume anymore because I keep updating my resume. By the way, here's a quick tip. I keep my up-to-date resume linked on my LinkedIn account. It's on a Google Doc, so anytime I update it, everyone who has the link has the updated version. So I don't really send in PDF versions. I usually send in a link unless they specifically ask for a PDF version, and then you can easily print a PDF version from Google Docs. And I'm not saying that to promote Google Docs because I work at Google. Really, that's just because that's what I've always used. Anyway, the first projects I had were really just, I listed some small jobs I'd had in the past, talked about like maybe leadership roles I'd had. It doesn't really matter what work experience you have, like what industry it's in. Companies at this stage really just want to see that you're responsible. So you know how to show up for work on time, you know how to get things done. Maybe you've led small group efforts that can be in classes, so I'd list that. If you've done any sort of projects in any CS classes, so for example, if you're just in a first year CS course, any projects you do in that class, I would talk about what you did and how. If you're not really doing any projects, a huge recommendation I have is reach out to a professor that you know or that you're taking a class with and ask if they could give you a small project you can work on and explain that you're trying to get experience for an internship. Most professors really want to help their students and want to see them succeed. So I'm sure they could come up with something or give you good resources. Worst case, there's some great websites online. Like you could literally Google like small Python project, and come up with like a Python web scraper, which maybe sounds really difficult if you're brand new to CS, but, there's a lot of tutorials that will walk you like step by step through downloading the software you need to writing the program you need. And then you can post that on your LinkedIn. Speaking of, if you don't have a LinkedIn, I highly recommend you get one. They're not important for every industry, but specifically for software. I know a lot of recruiters who look through LinkedIn profiles to find candidates. And a lot of times on LinkedIn, you can look up job postings even for internships and see who posted it. And you can reach directly out to that recruiter if you have LinkedIn Premium. Even if you don't have LinkedIn Premium, it's just a great way to like connect with software professionals who can give you advice, and maybe someday if you develop a relationship, even refer you. So yeah, if you don't have any experience yet, reach out to a professor, see if you can find some small projects for you that you can complete for them. Maybe try to be a TA in a class, or just list projects you're already working on for your classes, or just find something online. It doesn't have to be a lot. They're not looking for a ton. What they're looking for, though, is initiative, that you're wanting to learn, and that you have an actual interest in CS aside from just the basic classes that you're required to take. Because especially after your freshman and sophomore year, there's a high dropout rate in CS because people realize that they don't actually love it, or it just gets too hard. So I think they're not really looking for just a CS degree. They're looking for, like, okay, are they actually interested in this enough that they're looking for experience outside of their classes, or within their classes they're doing interesting projects that they can actually talk about, like you understand what you did and why you did it, and really just passion. So it doesn't really matter if it's a class project or not if you can demonstrate an interest in it, and that means being able to talk about it in detail, explain what was going on in it, why you enjoyed it. So yeah, your resume doesn't need to be super professional looking. It doesn't need to have a ton of experience on it. But just having any projects, honestly, will make you stand out, and you can find those almost anywhere. It does not have to be a paid internship. It does not have to be a paid project. And especially, honestly, if it's not, I think that shows more initiative because they know that you're in school full time, or you probably are. So hope that helps, Pikarika. Okay, let's see. AUVID asked, what is the best way to prep for coding challenges, whiteboarding, while juggle applying to more internship, school, hobbies, and life? That's a great question. The truth is, honestly, at least for me, this is just a matter of balancing priorities. So what is really important to you? If it's getting an internship, you're just going to have to make the time for that. I was in school full-time, I was working a part-time job, and I still made time to practice coding interview questions, like 2 hours a day, when it was getting really close to recruiting season. So right when the school semester started, I would wake up very early and I would practice it was just like, my goal each day was to get 2 questions done, or like 2 hours of work. So if I got 2 questions done before 2 hours were over, then I got to go do something fun. If I worked for 2 hours and I still hadn't gotten 2 questions done, then I would just go ahead and end at that time, because I did have classes, I did have a lot of homework, I did have life and work. So it's hard, but I would really encourage you to look at it as an investment, like a time investment into your future. If you get an internship into CS and you stay on good terms with that company, there's a very high chance that will turn into a job offer when you graduate. And I think that's worth the time that you will have to put in, because the truth is, it is a lot easier to get into companies through internships than it is through full-time interviews. So I worked really hard because I knew I wanted to avoid full-time interviews. Not saying that I don't think I could have passed those now. I do, because I've spent countless hours practicing coding questions and studying data structures and algorithms and algorithm analysis. But it just saves you a lot of stress, because coding interviews are hard and they're very stressful, at least for me. And I just wanted to avoid as much of that as possible. And practicing every day is something I knew I could do, versus passing an interview. Honestly, sometimes that's just a matter of luck. Like sometimes you just get a really easy question that you knew. Sometimes you get a really hard question, and even though you've studied a ton, maybe it's something you've never seen, or you blank in the interview, you don't know how to solve it, you don't know where to start. So with interviews, there's just so many things out of your control that to me, it was worth it to put a lot of time in at the beginning. So, sorry, that's probably not the answer you want to hear, but honestly, it's just a lot of being intentional, creating a schedule, and putting a lot of work in. It's definitely possible. I know it's really hard, and this is coming from someone who, I paid my whole way through school. My parents did not contribute anything, not because they were mean, they just couldn't. So especially if you have parents who are paying for your housing or paying for your school and you have free time, I know it's tempting to just want to go out and have fun after you finish all your homework, because you probably already have a lot of hard homework. But yeah, I mean, do you want a really great job right after you graduate? If you do, you can definitely get one if you start working now. And if you're a freshman, it is not too early to start applying for internships. I had a lot of people tell me as a freshman I would not get an internship. That's just not true. They are a lot harder to get, but if you are really intentional and you work really hard, it's very possible. So, okay, let's see. How do I attend? Sympathy Shot said, how do I attend the Grace Hopper conference? Do I need to be nominated by my school? If my major isn't CS, then is it impossible for me to attend? So Artemistress said, not OP, but I was a Grace Hopper Anita B. Org scholar. I don't think your major has to be CS, but I think related to tech. I'm not very certain on that one, so maybe someone will know more. Let me say this was in reference to the scholarship. But as far as attending goes, you have a few options. You can buy a ticket yourself. They're cheaper student tickets, but they're still very expensive. And then you also need to pay for your flight and hotel if it's in person. You can get an Anita B. Org scholarship, probably the most known one, and it pays for most expenses. The hotel will also be closer. You can look for scholarships offered by other companies and organizations. They exist, but didn't do this myself. I know Black Girls Code sponsors some girls. The last option is also to see if your school's computer science department or any conference funds will pay for all or part of the expenses. A lot of girls I met there were funded by their schools. Yeah, that's a great point. I've been twice. Once I was Anita B. Org scholar, and once I was funded by my school software program, because we don't have a lot of girls, so my department went out of their way to sponsor women. Also, I don't believe it was my CS department. It was my local university's Society of Women Engineers, I believe, is who sponsored it. It's been a little bit. Anyway, reach out to your CS program. This is great advice by Artemistress. Reach out to your CS program, see if they have any sponsorships, if you have any local organizations like Society of Women Engineers. I would apply to that. And for sure apply to the Anita B. Org Scholar. They tend to really try to give a lot of people those scholarships, and they do pay for your flight and your hotel and your ticket, which is a lot of money. So I don't know if your major has to be CS. Mine was, so I never really looked into that. I honestly think it probably doesn't. I think you can attend even if you're not a CS major, although I do believe computer engineering, computer science, software engineering probably get priority for scholarships, at least from the Anita B. Org organization. You do get invited to private events. Okay, so for the rest of this response was, as an Anita B. Org scholar, my ticket was covered. I got invited to private events. They paid for my flight and hotel shared with a stranger, and they gave me a $425 gift card for other expenses during my time there. The application process was fairly straightforward. Recommendations from professors, a couple short essay questions, and submitting your transcript. There's a lot of applicants, so I honestly think the most important aspect is the essay questions. I can't remember what they were exactly, but I believe it was something along the lines of why you'd want to attend and how you will pay this opportunity forward. So Sympathy Shot responded with, thank you. Do you know when the application for the scholarship regular admissions opens? It's not really straightforward on their website. I also don't mind getting the scholarship because I have access to other travel conference grants at my institution. And Artemistress replied, I want to say I had to apply for the scholarships pretty early, like January, February. They have an interest form you can sign up for to be notified when it opens. Also a warning that in years where it has been in person, tickets have been sold out in under an hour. Nothing you need to worry about if you get a scholarship that buys the tickets for you. No idea how the virtual event worked. I also believe that the company sponsors and schools get access to reserving tickets in advance. Yes, I believe that's true, because I know when I interned at Microsoft, they offered to pay for a ticket to Grace Hopper. I didn't take them up on that because I had already been twice and I didn't really feel the need to go again. The Grace Hopper conference is an amazing conference. If you're in CS, you should for sure go at least once. And it is not only for females, by the way. I didn't see a lot of guys there, but I believe you can go if you're a guy. Just putting that out there. You just get to meet a lot of other girls, which is really exciting and encouraging. But also, there's a lot of companies there. A lot of them actually do interviews at the Grace Hopper conference. So if you have interviews scheduled, I would ask if you could do it at the Grace Hopper conference if it's in person this year. Because in-person interviews are just, in my opinion, a lot better than online ones. So there's a lot of ways to attend Grace Hopper. You can, at the end of the day, you can probably buy a ticket yourself. They do sell out very, very quickly, and they are expensive. But if you have the money and you're willing to sit online, that's an option. Going through your school's department is an option. Companies also often have applications where they'll sponsor people, even if you're not interning with them. Larger companies will sometimes pay for people. I believe Google has an application for that. And then the Grace Hopper conference itself offers scholarships. As far as like when the application opens, honestly, if you Google that, you'll find that information. It's pretty straightforward, I believe. They do ask you, I think I remember because this was a while ago. I think it's a lot of questions they ask you, and I think you have to fill out an essay and things like that, but definitely worth it. and they really tried to get a lot of people those scholarships. So if you've received it once before, I don't think you're eligible to receive it again from Grace Hopper, just so they can get as many people as possible there, because they realize a lot of girls might come from underrepresented backgrounds and might not have the financial resources to pay for the ticket on their own. So for sure, I would apply every year until you get one or until you're not a graduate. And don't just apply to the Anita B. Org scholarship website. Also apply, just Google scholarships for Anita B. Org conference or the Grace Hopper conference. And you'll probably find a lot of applications if you really want to go. And I for sure think it's worth it, especially if you haven't interned anywhere yet and you're trying to get your foot in the door, because you can see and meet recruiters in person. I would go check it out. I actually, one year I was there, it was super cool. I got to meet the CEO of Robinhood and talk to him privately for like 10 minutes before other people around me realized who he was and started trying to get in on the conversation. But that was a really cool opportunity, probably my highlight of any conference I've ever been to. Very interesting. Yeah. Okay, let's see. So Tamadi335 asked, what did you have on your resume for your first internship? So my first internship at Boeing, I was an international business major. I had on my resume, let's see, I had worked at a coffee shop for like 4 years during high school. And then I ended up going to another coffee shop to manage it, and that was actually internationally. So I had some unique experience, but no software experience yet. That internship wasn't for software, so it didn't really matter. But for my first software internship, when I switched my major the next year to software, I applied for the Microsoft Explore program. Met a few people while I was interning at Boeing, so I got a few referrals to Microsoft, which I'm really sure helped get my application noticed. As far as what was on my actual resume, so my past experience in coffee shops, a little bit of management experience. I listed also a few projects I had done in my first Java course, which I was currently in when I applied for the internship. So I only had like 2 projects there, but one was like I had a really great professor. We did Java graphic user interface projects. One of them was writing a program with a user interface to control a drone, which we then got to test out in a lab. So that was super fun and neat. Probably actually one of the best CS courses I've been in to date. Also one of the most fun, really gave me a love for software right then and helped me get through my much harder courses that I didn't enjoy as much, like C-based programming. By the way, it's not a bad thing if you don't like certain languages and you like others more. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't be in software. I personally am okay with back-end coding, but I really prefer full stack or front end, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm just saying, like, if you take a C-based class and you're really intimidated or have a really hard time, don't think that means that you need to drop out. Like, just try a few more classes, try some other languages, try front-end development, see how you feel about those things before you make a decision to switch your major, please. Because I know a lot of people who sort of just have one hard class and think that they're not cut out for it and drop. And the truth is, almost everyone has a really hard time in at least one software class. So just persevere. So really I had a few like jobs from high school on my resume, and I had like 2 small programs I had written in Java on my resume, and that was pretty much it. But I also was involved in some organizations like Society of Women Engineers. So if you can get involved in any organizations and add those to your resume, that also really helps. And I would also list the courses you're currently taking. So I listed that I was like in Java 1. Anyway, hope that answers your questions, and I'll post the link to this video as a response. Happy to help, guys. Have a great day.